Korg released the Wavestate in the early half of 2020, modernizing the vector plus wave sequencing synthesis approach introduced in 1990. The enthusiasm for the new Wavestate model got me to revisit the classic Wavestation tucked away in my own rack, the Wavestation SR. Engineers at Sequential Circuits designed and released the Prophet VS in '86, pioneering vector synthesis, which mixed 4 digital waveform oscillators together in real time using a joystick controller. Sequential Circuits Inc. was bought by Yamaha in 1988 after Sequential had financial hard times. While at Yamaha, the next iteration of vector control evolved into dynamic vector synthesis, finding its way into the SY22, TG33, and SY35 models by mixing 2 sample playback oscillators with 2 FM oscillators. The joystick method of manipulation was retained. After about a year, those same former Sequential engineers landed at Korg, and in 1990, the groundbreaking Wavestation was released, introducing advanced vector synthesis, which again used a joystick for blending, this time, 4 sound sources incorporating wave sequences. It is wave sequencing that allows digital waves to be played one after the other across time per oscillator. This thrilling synthesis approach, combining vector control with evolving waveform playback, wasn't an instant runaway hit, as bread and butter patches keyboardists expected, like piano, strings, and guitar, were scarce in the lineup. This wasn't an M1 after all, which is what Korg had been most recently famous for in 1988. In 1991, Korg built on the intrigue of the original with Wavestation EX, providing more PCM samples, including requested piano and drum sounds, doubling the ROM from 2 megabytes to 4. An upgrade for the original Wavestation was available to make it into an EX version. Also released that year as a rack version, Wavestation AD incorporated a mini version of the keyboard's joystick and added audio inputs that could be integrated into the synthesis engine in real time. External audio could now become an added wave source or just be processed by the Wavestation AD's internal dual effects engines. By 1992, Korg wrapped the lineup with the Wavestation SR, a 1 rack space version lacking the joystick, missing audio inputs found on the AD model, and redesigning the interface with tiny little buttons and an eye-squinting 2-line display screen. On the plus side, the SR offers the most ROM banks, performances, patches, wave sequences, and multisets of any hardware Wavestation. Programming the SR is frustrating. The interface is logical, but its space-saving achievements discourage interaction. The SR has 2 categories of data: PCM wave data and program data. The internal ROM has 484 waves, which is the raw material for patches and wave sequences. A PCM card slot on the front panel allows access to additional sampled PCM waves. Program data is held in 3 user-writable RAM banks and 8 permanent ROM banks. The front panel also has a card slot to access additional program data ROM and RAM cards. Each ROM, RAM, or card bank holds 50 performances, 35 patches, and 32 wave sequences. Adding it up without any additional cards inserted, the SR has 550 performances, 385 patches, and 352 wave sequences built in. That's the most of any Wavestation hardware of the 90s. So already it's easy to see why the SR would be a great roadworthy addition to the Wavestation lineup for the gigging musician. Tons of sounds for every kind of song. Each of the 50 performances per bank contains 8 parts, as well as parameters specific to the performance, like effect settings and keyboard splits or layering. Each part contains a patch and specifics about how patches are played, like transposition, velocity, and volume. Each patch has 1, 2, or 4 voices, and each voice is the playback of a PCM wave with its own filters, amps, envelopes, LFOs, etc. Each wave sequence is a successive step-by-step playback event list of PCM waves with a specific duration while a key is held down. Like many of its contemporaries, multi-timbral functionality is a powerful feature of the Wavestation SR. On board are 32 multisets. A multiset contains 16 performances, each assigned its own discrete MIDI channel. When in this multi-timbral mode, effects pertain to the whole collection of performances within the multiset. Another battery change. Well, at least Korg made this easy. Thankfully, their engineers insisted on a coin battery holder soldered to the motherboard. The SR is looking for a 2032 3V, which is easy to find and pretty cheap. A few years ago, I installed a 2025 3V because I didn't have a 2032. Same voltage, but the 2025 is a smaller diameter, so it doesn't last as long. But this time, I'm ready with the proper 2032 3V battery. It's good practice to reinitialize after a battery change. User edits get wiped, so back up RAM banks prior to changing out the battery. Press and hold Bank, Edit, and Yes while tapping the down cursor to enter the special menu. The OS version is displayed. Cursor over a few spots to reach the Init All RAM option and press Yes. It takes a few seconds to reset before the welcome screen pops up again. Other settings in the global and MIDI menu have also been reset, so adjust accordingly for your setup. RAM banks 1, 2, and 3 are just duplicates of ROM banks 8, 9, and 10 after the reset, so I'll head over to the Korg forums and grab the system exclusive files so I can load up the factory RAM banks that shipped with the SR. On a Mac, I use SysEx Librarian to transfer system-exclusive data via MIDI. Tap the MIDI Global button. The MIDI Basic channel should be set at 1. Tap Page Plus and tap the cursor over to Protect Int and switch it off so data can load into the RAM banks from SysEx Librarian. Now all the RAM banks are back to how they came from the factory. I'll toggle over to ROM Bank 7, Performance 20, to demo the vector feature. A MIDI keyboard is obviously needed to play the SR, but so is a XY controller if real-time vectors are to be tweaked. For this demo, I'm using the Technics WSA1 keyboard as my MIDI controller. The beauty here is that both XY controllers on the WSA1 can be assigned to continuous controller 16 and 17 that the SR responds to for vector changes. Under the MIDI menu, wave sequencing can be set to synchronize to the internal clock of the SR or via MIDI to an external device like a hardware sequencer or DAW. This ensures the Wavestation locks in with the tempo of a song. So there it is, a not so quick overview and demo of the Korg Wavestation SR. I have to say that as complex as the SR is to dive into, Dan Phillips made the Wavestation SR easy to understand. He's written perhaps the best synth manuals I've read on any gear I own. This video is a thank you to Dan Phillips for making the SR accessible and fun to learn. Many of the diagrams and charts in this video come straight from the manuals Dan wrote. He also has a ton of extra info on the Wavestation series on his website. If you love vintage music technology like I do, you will likely find plenty of joy at the ZINES website. They archive out-of-print music gear magazines, preserving history for all gearheads worldwide. ZINES scanned articles and ads often appear in my videos. Another source of inspiration and nostalgia comes from the Retro Synth Ads website. Great stories about gear and the ads that made synths famous. Thank you to both for keeping the past somewhere I can return to as often as I like.